What's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. In today's video, it's going to be talking about and reviewing Trinket Sims, racial Sims, and talking about crafting. A lot of questions floating around those topics over the last few days, weeks, leading into Heroic Raid release and all that in 3 or 4 days at this point. What is today, Thursday or Friday? Yeah, it's coming faster than we thought. So I want to hit on all this today and break down why I think certain things look good, but might not be as good as they seem, all that, and just give a general direction on where to go. Now, before we get into that really quickly here, I want to show you all the merch for the channel that is launching with this video right now. Now, very briefly, I don't want to take up too much time because I want to get into this video. Hopefully it isn't too long, but I do want to show you guys the merch is dropping with this video. It should be live at this point already. If you click the link below in the description, I'll probably pin it in this video. I'm awake early today. We have a lot of merch coming out with those that have seen. Been wanting to do this for a while across the channel. The Fell Destruction Warlock art was indeed done in time by Mr. Andy, the editor, or my artist. I mean, he's a great man. So that's available in conjunction with the regular Fire Destro mat, the Affliction mat with Tier 5 Uthalesh, Tier 3 Destruction, Demonology Warlock mat as well with the dogs living on it. This is Tier 6. Tier 5 with Uthalesh, and Tier 3 with Mr. Thalkale over here and all the dogs. There's a bunch of stuff on here. The THG Dirt merch, obviously, the mouse pad, smaller version and or larger version if you want. It's also a possible thing. There you go. We have the THG hats in many different colors if you'd like. These prices are set as low as we pretty much possibly can, while also paying out THG and the artist, Andy, a bit for these as well. Putting the baseline production costs also into account as well. They're basically set for the most part, but we might run some deals every so often on them. But these are launching today, and if you guys want them, or THG purple, THG gray, THG pink, THG blue, THG in Miami Dolphins colors, for some reason the team's terrible, hoodies, THG sweaters, there's a lot of other things too, a THG koozie, it's all there. If you guys want it, link down below. And yeah, thank y'all for support. Hopefully you guys like them. We put a lot of time and effort into this, and I'm pumped. And so is THG. Okay, starting things off with race sims for Warlock. All 3 specs here heading into, whether it's Mythic Plus or rating or both or whatever you're doing in S1, this is where things look. Now, I do briefly want to drive home here that Pandaren is simming very well right now. They're simming well. I think the current Warlock sims, they might have been updated by now. I ran these last night. They're simming with the non-optimal food or whatever. We changed to Harundar Celebration primary stat food, and Pandaren jumps ahead of everybody else. So if you're not simming with this food, sim with this food, and you'll see Pandaren jump ahead due to their racial. Now, the reason they're ahead is because their racial trait. I have all the traits here. Very cool. Found it on Wowpedia. We have Pandaren somewhere in here. Epicurean increases the stat benefit from food by 100%, which seems solid, all the above. We'll come back to that in a minute, but doubling your primary stat food is pretty solid and outsemming most of the races here for Affliction, and that's the case for Demo and Destro. Spoilers ahead as well. Looking at F though, so I am currently playing a dwarfing game, so if you see dwarf or Kalamazi, it's a dwarf basically. Pandaren, Mechanome, Orc, Dry Knight, Troll, Gnome, and then so on and so forth down here. Other races and things as well. Harunar's in here somewhere. Down here, there you go. Now, I do want to say, well, I'll have links to all these sims down below if you want to dig through them for yourself. All these sims run with my own character too. I didn't run other profiles, so still jumping around. I got my character in game, it's fine, whatever. But Pandaren is indeed the biggest overall DPS gain comparatively to Dwarf, which is sitting down here, where this is basically, I'm a dwarf, so margin of error. It's about 1,000% or 1,000 DPS gain, looking at about a 1.7% gain. Now, you might think to yourself, okay, that's really big. That's super powerful. That's the best DPS output. I need to play Pandaren. We'll come back to that though. Keep in mind we have Mechanome and Orc sitting here. About a 0.7% difference here between Orc and Mechanome. There's roughly margin of error between these two, Pandaren and Mechanome. These can be both Alliance and Horde. Also, keep that in mind. But you have Orc, Dry Knight, Troll, so on and so forth compared to what I am right now, which is a Dwarf. Moving on to Destruction. On top again, Pandaren, Mechanome, Dwarf. I am playing a Dwarf, so these are one and the same. Tauren, Dry Knight, Orc, Void Elf, and a mix of other racials down here. So once again, Pandaren on top, Mechanome number 2 if you want to play Alliance. Pretty close here, roughly margin of error, a bit outside of it, but still pretty good overall. For Destruction Warlock, Dwarf looking better here though, comparatively to Affliction, which is down here, about 1,000 DPS loss comparatively to Mechanome and the Panda. And then when we have Demonology here, once again, Pandaren on top, followed by Orc, Mechanome, Draenei, Troll, Dwarf, Dark Iron Dwarf, and then me being a dwarf here as well. Basically a margin of error between these once again. But the one thing we're driving home here is that Pandaren is on top. Their Epicurean buff, pretty strong, with the new foods and things in the upcoming, well, season, all that, right? Orc, not a bad bet either. So you have Pandaren, Orc, Mechanome, basically for Demonology. Pandaren, Mechanome, Dwarf for Destruction. And Pandaren, Mechanome, Orc for Affliction. So if you're comparing Affliction and Demonology, Pandaren, Orc, Mechanome. Pandaren, Mechanome, Orc. They're all in that top 1 and 3 spot. Now, there's a big drop off here for Affliction. Demonology, not much of a drop off. But when it comes to, excuse me, Destruction, Orc's about 800 DPS behind, roughly, at my eye level, give or take, right? Or with my gearing. Now, I do want to drive home here that Pandaren might sim against the highest simming race to you. I mean, it is here, right? However, it's very important to keep in mind that the DPS ratio on whatever class you're playing, for some reason, unfortunately, these still exist in game, whether they're utility ratios or DPS ratios. The DPS, the overall output, is not the end-all be-all. For example, Pandaren is here, has Epicurean, double stat, benefit from food, very good. This is irrelevant in rating, irrelevant in rating, irrelevant in rating, or irrelevant in any kind of content really, except for like falling off cliffs. And you have Quaking Palm, doesn't really do anything in rating, M+ never really used. Very niche spots probably at some points, I'm sure, but comparatively to Dwarf, which has Explorer, whatever, Might of the Mountain, crit strike, bonus damage, and healing increased by 2%. Now, this is not, once again, as good as Pandaren. For example, here's Demonology, here's Dwarf, here's Pandaren. Here's Dwarf, here's Pandaren. Dwarf's way down here, Pandaren's up here. But their other racial, being Stone Form, is very strong in M+ in a handful of settings, and rating in the past in certain fights has been really good to Stone Form off a debuff if you need to. And this can be... in the end, if it helps you get through a choke point on a fight or remove a debuff that you need to remove, it's like straining the raid or whatever that your healers can't deal with, whatever, it's a good bit better than a few hundred more DPS, right? It's been played a lot. Dwarf's been one of the higher races played in M+ for a long time. Same with Night Elf, once again having Shadow Meld, very strong for a lot of M+ strategies. Also having Touch of a Loon or, you know, this thing for like haste or crit, whether it's day or night. Not horrendous overall damage-wise, not as good as Dwarf, but I mean, they're on here somewhere. They're somewhere. But like this goes to show, Night Elf has been played for a good while in M+ due to Shadow Meld strategies being a thing. You might do 1100 more DPS as a Pandaren, but if you can't Shadow Meld and get use that strat your group's using, doesn't make a difference because you're gonna die, right? Within reason. So driving home, the highest simming racial, often highest simming damage-wise feels more relevant in rating for like just higher output and damage than just M+. I feel like typically you see strats that involve Stone Form, well, or like Shadow Meld. Stone Form's good in M+. Often, I feel more than rating, definitely for, you know, Shadow Meld's case. But regardless, keep that in mind. If you're doing M+, not just rating, or if you've used Stone Form, Shadow Meld in the past, you very well might need that racial again. And in the end, realistically, the disparity between Pandaren or Mechanome or Dwarf or whatever for the vast majority of players is not going to make a difference. Okay, hopping into trinkets here for... no one saw anything. Hopping into trinkets here for Affliction, Demonology, and Destruction. Now, I've simmed this in single target. I don't think any of these sims are implemented yet. There are APLs for it, but it's fine. We don't need to do this right now. It's okay. Usually you can extrapolate out stat increase trinkets and how they work with your profile and go from there based on, you know, spec you're playing, M+ and all that. I have AF, Demo, and Desher here. Once again, my own character, but I've taken all of the trinkets at their highest level possible and simmed them in combination. I have the actual sims here from the Lock Discord that people have run there much smarter than me, put in crazy amount of work. Once again, thank you to them for all running all these sims. We can compare like the BIS profile sims, the ones that are simming highest for me. So, hopping into Affliction first, I have Emberwing Feather and Soulcatcher's Charm simming very high. So both of these are from M+. I forgot where this is from exactly. I can find out where. I think this is Miazara Caverns. It is Miazara Caverns. So there's that. Second or third boss, but M+ doesn't matter, obviously. So it is a damage-based trinket. It does X amount of damage to a target for 12 seconds. If it dies, it jumps somewhere else doing more damage. But once again, like these damage-based trinkets, they don't extrapolate out anywhere near as well as like proc-based trinket, or not proc-based, stat-based trinkets do. Things that do just general AoE, or like, you know, stat-based ones, the ones you typically see being played in M+. Usually if it's like an AoE-based trinket for damage, it's like Beloro, so it's just overtuned, right? The ones that give you like a haste effect or an intellect proc, those are going to affect the spells that hit every mob, you know, all the same essentially, versus this is procking on one target, maybe doing more damage in single target or on one target compared to 7 or 8. But if you have 7 or 8 targets around, the int proc from a trinket like Gaze the All-Seer will likely be better on 7, 8, 10 plus targets. So worth mentioning there, these are single target sims, but yeah. So I have Soulcatcher's Charm and Emberwing Feather being up here as like 1 and 2, but there's also like, they're pretty close here to Gaze the All-Seer and Soulcatcher's Charm, both equip-based trinkets here as well. On use, equip versus equip. And over here you have Emberwing Feather and Gaze the All-Seer also being pretty close here. And once again, this has the it's not debuffed if you're looking at it like in a 2+ target scenario with like just a single target effect on it, right? But regardless though, I have the actual sim for Affliction here as far as like BIS profiles are concerned. I don't think it has Soulcatcher's Charm as part of the BIS profile. It could be my gear, how things are stacking up. Don't know. There's some margin of error, obviously. They might have chosen to omit it because it's so sort of niche in a sense too. The BIS trinket combination currently is Emberwing Feather and Gaze of the All-Seer, which is right here. And I would agree with this. Once again, there's an asterisk next to this trinket. It's good in certain scenarios. Would you see it in overall play? Probably not. So Emberwing Feather, Gaze the All-Seer. Gaze is from the one boss raid, the Dream Rift, Mr. Chimeras. And here we have Emberwing Feather from Ember Dawn. This is from Windrunner Spire. So farming M+ for that. Then below we have things like Shadow of the Imperium Requiem, which is not coming up here for some reason, but it's fine. This is the one from Void Dungeon. I forgot what it's called. Seat of the Triumvirate. There you go. It's an equip trinket. It gives you haste, I believe, if it procs, or if a target's low on health. Charm is here. Mix of like Feather, Gaze, other things here too. You see wraps of Cosmic Madness popping up sometimes too, which is not too bad. Allied deaths induce further madness, reducing the cooldown by a minute. This is similar to Manic Grief Torch in a sense in the past, where somebody dies on your team, you get basically half a CDR on this trinket. So I'm very curious to see where this goes. Each deals, well, each whatever like missile deals X amount of damage split between nearby enemies, and damage increased by 30 for each additional enemy hit. So very similar like to Grief Torch. A lot of snap on demand burst damage over 2 seconds, unleashing a barrage onto enemies. Whatever people die, it resets. I have no idea if there's an ICD on this or not. I assume there is, but worth keeping an eye on here as well. But for Affliction, I would concur Emberwing Feather and Gaze the All-Seer look to be your highest combination for single target, and all that. Others worth mentioning here too. For Demonology, Demonology has Veilgor's Final Stare and Emberwing Feather, semi-highest for me. Now, this is also an interesting combination because it's double equip, or sorry, double on use, on a 1.5 minute cooldown, and on a 2-minute cooldown. Tyrant is 1 minute long. I wouldn't be surprised if you do see a bit of double on use for Demonology. A lot of Demos damage right now is based around your Apex window, spawning in your half-minute Dominion window basically every minute with your Tyrant, and then churning out pets during that window. Popping Veilgor gives you more mastery. Feather gives haste, but you're buffing them. You basically alternate Feather first, Veilgor second, Feather third, Veilgor fourth, because Tyrant is 1 minute. These are 1.5 minute and 2-minute trinkets, right? If it ends up being like BIS overall, we'll see where it goes. But when a lot of your damage is during a certain window, you have seen double on use being played like this in the past. Other similar combinations, excuse me, Soulcatcher's Charm, Emberwing Feather, Locust Walker's Ribbon, which is interesting. Baseline Mastery equip gives you a chance to increase your int by X amount for 10 seconds. Each temptation permanently increases the effect by 5 up to 10 times. So as long as you're in combat, you gain a bit more of a bonus every time you have that effect. Other things here, once again, Soulcatcher's Charm, but like single target based, weird jumping dot effect, sort of Shadow of the Imperium Requiem here again, from the dungeon. I forgot what it's called again, but the Shadow one coming back from Legion. we have part of S1. A mix of other things here too. Heart of Wind with Emberwing Feather, but usually it's just Feather and X. Feather, X, yeah, Feather, 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 Feather. A lot of Feather effects, or Bilgors, one of the two, right? So there's basically that. I wouldn't be surprised if you do see like double on use long term. It's worth mentioning here as well. I mean, this is a dungeon trinket. This is from Velgor, which is the fourth boss in Voidspire. Both are at mythic level, so harder to obtain this from your vault basically or nothing, comparatively to this in a sense, depending what you're doing, but worth keeping in mind for Sims early on and seeing where you go. And also when it comes to the Demonology Sim here, I'm trying to find it here, there we go. As far as like BIS trinkets are concerned, it has Locust Walker's Ribbon and Emberwing Feather being your highest overall for the BIS profile here, which if you're looking at the comparison here, once again, like if you don't want to use double on use and or it's harder to obtain like 2 mythic eye level trinkets like this for on use, just in general, Soulcatcher's Charm, not a huge fan of when it comes to like universal scenarios, and it has indeed Ribbon and Feather here, which is our third highest combination here, and not a massive difference as well between these two as far as like damage is concerned. You know, a few hundred DPS, it's a little bit, but I mean, double on use versus one less keybind. I'm 35 years old. I'm probably going with this, let's be honest. And finally, we have, what do we have? Destruction? We have Destro. Destro's highest equipping trinkets. Once again, Soulcatcher's Charm and Gaze of the All-Seer. So 2 equip-based trinkets, which is interesting. However, Destro's played equip-based trinkets, like 2 of them, a decent bit in recent times due to its damage profile, which has changed a bit, I will say, when it comes to Midnight. But scrolling down here, we have a handful of trinket combinations. Gaze the All-Seer, All-Seer, All-Seer. You have Wraps, which is like your Manic Grief Torch for casters, basically. I think it's just casters. Could be Bailey as well. I don't know. But there's that. You have Shadow of the Empyrean Requiem here. And Soulcatcher's Charm right here. Now, if you were playing like in a Havoc Cleave-based fight, I didn't sim this, but these trinkets that have like these single target damage procs, again, like Soulcatcher's Charm, or things like Shadow of the Empyrean Requiem, if they're stacked up, you can cleave on top of each other, visiting to slice both of them, whatever, gain some value, sure. If it's spread targets like Velgor and the 2 dragons in Voidspire, right? You would very likely see a combination of Gaze of the All-Seer and Ribbons, or Gaze of the All-Seer and X, right? And if you look at the actual sim here, I can pull this up, Diabolist. Let's hop in here. Going down, bang, bang. Gear set. You are seeing Gaze of the All-Seer and Velgor's Final Stare. So you have that 1.5-minute profile. Obviously, if you are playing Inferno, which is the talent that most Diabolist builds are playing, your Infernal is a 1.5 minutes. If you're playing Hellcaller, you have the weird staggered fashion of like 1.5 minutes Infernal, minute Malevolence. This is Diabolist though, so 1.5 minutes Infernal does sync pretty well with Gaze of the All-Seer being a 1.5 minute trinket. So you have like Gaze of the All-Seer, Velgor's Final Stare, Gaze of the All-Seer, Locust Walker's Ribbon. They're in margin of error range, and the rest of these are like weird stat based, or I guess maybe Gaze, like a damage effect or whatever. But if I was in a Havoc Cleave-based fight, a fight where I'm cleaving with spread targets and trying to get value on the spells that I'm cleaving, and they're not stacked, you would very likely see Gaze the All-Seer, Velgor's Final Stare, Gaze the All-Seer, Ribbon if you're looking for both like 2 equip-based trinkets and stuff. Depending on fight duration, maybe you want this over this, vice versa. But these are good, don't get me wrong. Charm's solid, this is solid, this is solid. But they have niche uses where they're better, and niche where they're going to be a lot worse. So it's worth keeping that in mind, and you know, once again, planning that out based on what you require early on for rating and Mythic Plus and all that. Like, I wouldn't play this in M Plus. I wouldn't play this. I wouldn't play any of these M Plus. Like, I mean, if I had the option of playing like Velgor's or like probably Wraps or Ribbon or Wraps or this, I'm playing Velgor's. On demand, stat-based trinket, every Infernal. That's where I'm going. Okay, I want to make a brief section here on crafting. We're going to hit on veteran crafts super briefly and then get into like the real stuff with like crafting mythic weapons, embellishment sims here as well. Is talking about like what you should probably be doing. Because people see BIS lists and BIS profiles and think, okay, this is what I should make week 1 of Mythic or week 2 of Mythic. But that's usually not, it's quite often not the case based on what your vault and things have in there. Very briefly, before we get into like the heroic mythic raid stuff, You can use Veteran Crest to craft gear if you want. People are probably going to do this heading into Heroic Raid. Maybe you craft mid-Heroic Raid, depending on your guild's at. It's where it depends. Veteran Crests are sort of whatever. It costs 80 Crest. I wouldn't spend any right now. It's 80 Crest to make an item that can go to 246. It does not cost a spark, and you can put embellishments on these items. So you can see right here, you can do these, like Devouring, whatever. Arcana Weave should be in here somewhere, I think. There it is, if you want to. These items at 246 do not cost sparks. The higher ones will cost sparks. Don't spend your spark now. If you already have, it's not the end of the world, but there's better ways to try and optimize gear to not waste a spark in a sense. If you're going to craft veteran items for like the raid opening next week, I would at least wait until you finish your M0s in your hard prey this week. That gives you the chance to exhaust all sources of veteran gear before you go in and make higher veteran gear. M0 is a 240, hard prey is 233. I have 4 pieces of blue gear left. I haven't even done M0s this week, so if I did them all and had these 4 slots left, I'd probably make like cloak and boots maybe. With veteran pieces for embellishments, and just use the rest of the crest of upgrading veteran gear to higher veteran, whatever. If you want to min-max even more, when the raid comes out next week on Heroic, M0s, their eye level increases from 240 to 246, and it goes to champion track. So if you want to wait and try to do a third, M0 cycle the day the raid drops, you can do that and then try and fill holes in your gear with crafted veteran pieces with embellishments on them if you want. It's sort of up to you if you care that much. I don't want to play the game for 30 hours day one. I mean, I do, but don't. But if you want to min-max that, try and do an M0 cycle for champion gear before your raid that night on Tuesday, whatever. But I would at least wait if you want to craft veteran pieces until you do all your M0s this week, because they're still weekly now. And do your hard praise this week and see what happens there. Next week, you get Nightmare Parade, which I think is champion gear. I've heard it might even be hero gear. M0s are dropping champion as well, and M0s become daily next week. When the raid opens, they are daily. Look, you can see my flowers. That's cool. Yeah, I didn't know this. But yeah, that's that. So if you want to spend veteran crest on crafted gear, I'd do that. I'd at least wait. Now, as far as spending your sparks and things and embellishment sims and all that, a lot of questions on this stuff here. So I've run sims on embellishments. I also have the BIS profiles for Warlock currently. They are right here. Looked at them a minute ago, but here we go. This is going to be Affliction. So for all the profiles for Warlock currently, in the BIS sims that are floating around, we are playing double Arcana Weave. Arcana Weave Lining spawns a worm that increases your int and someone else's int by 44, whatever it is. Yeah, or I guess you get more, they get less, whatever. On 2 pieces of cloth gear, you cannot put Arcana Weave on jewelry, like rings or necks, or a weapon. Cannot go there. So if the sim has it on a cloak and on bracers for Affliction. Here is, what is this? This is Destruction, I'm sorry. Arcana Weave on bracers and cloak, and Demonology should be sitting right here, which it is. And we also have Arcana Weave right there on bracers and cloak. Very cool. Previously, we had the ring that did direct damage with like more gem colors and all that. Thankfully, it's not BIS anymore. I didn't like it a whole lot. Arcana Weave has that, once again, hit it on already, that universal scaling effect. It is buffing your main stat, right? So it's buffing every spell, if like Hand of Gul'dan or an AoE spell. All the mobs are getting hit by that spell are getting that intellect modifier, comparatively to like if the jewel crafting ring embellishment was simming a little bit higher, that was a single target effect. It might sim a little higher in pure single target. When you're in like stat cleave settings, you're losing value. You're hitting 1 target out of 10. But these kind of things are universally applicable, are better in M+, better in AoE, better universally. So that's good to see as far as BIS profiles are concerned. However, when it comes to crafting, this is where it gets interesting. So we have 3 sparks now. We'll have 4th one next week on Heroic when the raid opens, as long as it follows suit with what's happening now. Which means you should have the opportunity to get a 5th spark the week Mythic opens. Now, what you're gonna see people do, like, it depends where you raid, obviously. You can extrapolate this out if your guild clears Heroic week 1, or maybe it's week 8 you're clearing Heroic, whatever. This is all like based on what your guild does. If you're just going in there casually having fun, you can make a weapon week 1 of Heroic and go for there. If you want to wait more and try and optimize around your gearing you might get from clearing the raid, and then Vaults, this is what you'll see most, like, probably higher-ish players do. They're going into Mythic, right? So, the raid opens here. You're going to have your 4th spark coming in here, which means you can make a weapon, a 2-hander. Items cost 2 sparks to make in Midnight. It's like a pair of boots costs 2, a cloak costs 2. 2-handed weapons cost 4. So you can basically make a 2-handed like staff here, or you can make a pair of boots and a pair of bracers, whatever. So if you want to make like Arcana Weave cloak and bracers we saw a minute ago for BIS, you could theoretically do that here. However, the largest power gains for your character typically always lie in weapons. Weapons are big, obviously. Crafting a staff, I mean, it has 350 int on this staff versus bracers having 43. Chest has 79. So gaining that eye level increase on weapons is dramatically more powerful than what it is on a chest or making like a cloak and bracer set with Arcana Weave on it, right? So what you're going to see a lot of players do is they're still going to advocate for holding your spark next week, not crafting on the 17th, rated out here on Heroic. They're probably going to hold it, holding as long as possible until you exhaust all potential resources or sources of gear is what's going to be advised. So if the raid comes out here and you can hold all the way through here and wait to craft and make your decision here when like when Sunwell opens up. So here you have a vault coming in that will have mythic items in it from doing M+ this week or whatever. You can craft a weapon here. And let's say you open no weapon in your vault in your M+ slots, right? There's nothing there. It's like gloves, cloak, bracers. Don't need any of those. I would then say, okay, I'm taking, my 80 or 100 mythic crests, whatever they are, and making a 2-handed staff. Just taking 100 mythic crests to make a 2-handed staff at 285 eye level is a dramatic increase over having a heroic staff from the raid or wherever you've gotten a heroic combination of main hand, offhand. It is a very large power increase in Sims comparatively to making a mythic cloak or mythic bracers, right? Even if you're going to make Arcana Weave, you likely make them on larger pieces of gear like legs or chest, shoulders or helm if you have like those options that aren't breaking your tier set for this the raw eye level main stat, secondary stat gains. So what you'll see early on is players waiting as long as possible to craft a mythic staff. Very, very likely. If you open a mythic staff in your vault, then great. You don't got to craft one. You can upgrade it with your myth crest, and you can make something else. Make a chest piece, probably make a larger item. It's not part of your tier set for that larger gain, because chest is 80 int versus 43, 83 here versus whatever, so on and so forth, right? But long-term BIS, which you see here in these Arcana Weave sims and stuff, right? This is when you have access to, Spire the Furious Construct at 289, when you have basically max everything in max eye level. At that point, yeah, you make crafted items on the lesser value, slots essentially, because they're 285 comparatively to 289. Crafted maxes out at 285. So early on, it's harder to obtain those 285 chests and legs and two-handed staves and stuff. Later on in the patch, when everyone's farming stuff, you want to sort of shift that mindset to saying, okay, I have the 289 pieces. What can I craft in lesser value slots like bracers and cloak? Because they're lower eye level. But the lower eye level affects the stat loss of like having lesser int on bracers or cloak more or less essentially, right? It's better to craft on smaller pieces later on, TLDR. So later on, you'll see a shift to Arcana Weave likely, but early on, you'll probably see the vast majority of players making a two-handed weapon, unless they open one in the vault. If you open a one-handed myth weapon in the vault, you got to figure that out too on your own. Maybe craft an offhand. I don't know. Now the question is, what do you want to use for embellishments on your weapon? So I've run Sims here. Here's the crafted weapon you can use for casters. Please filter by current expansion. Don't make this thing. This is the Agi one. Blizzard will not refund this if you make this. Make the cane. Make sure it says intellect. Think of it cane. We're all old. We need canes to walk now. This is for the young players. They're agile. We're not. We're old. We need canes. Intellect. So you can obviously crest, whatever stats here. There's a handful of embellishments you can use here. You cannot put Arcana Weave on a weapon. It has to be Pango Charm, Primal Spore Binding, Devouring Band, or one of the Darkman things. Rot, Hunt, Blood, and Void. I ran Sims for all these. using my own character. Destruction on top has Darkmoon Sigil Hunt, followed by Primal Spore Binding, Void, Devouring Band, whatever that is. So basically on top is Hunt for Destruction. For Affliction, you've got Primal Spore Binding, followed 1 DPS behind in Darkmoon Sigil Hunt. Affliction has Haunt modifiers. I think it's 18% with improved Haunt now, so it's modifying damage-based effects. If you look at Primal Spore Binding in game, what it is, it launches like bolts that heal or do damage based on what you're hitting, basically. So it does like direct damage. So that's why it's a little higher for AF, but Primal Sigil Hunt, whatever, this thing, is very, very close. Chance to grant 85 secondary stats to you for 15 seconds. Stat proc. So if I was in this world, I would still make Hunt over Primal Spore Binding by a long shot, even though they're the same in Sims or Affliction. Once again, Destro has Hunt here on top. Spore Binding is lower. I still make Hunt. And you have Demonology here also. Hunt, Void, Devouring Band, Spore Binding, all that stuff here. So, I mean, from what it looks like in these Sims, if you craft a weapon and wait long enough to do so, you're likely going to want to throw Darkmoon Sigil Hunt on that weapon and just go from there. As far as your other embellishments concerned, if you make a weapon, it's only one crafted spark item. You'll probably keep wearing your veteran piece of gear if you make like bracers with like veteran crest with like another embellishment on it, if it's worthwhile. But that's what I do. A lot of information in there, obviously. If you don't want to wait that long and you're just doing your own thing, man, having a good time, and you want to make a staff for Heroic Week and your guild, you know, clears Heroic Week 4 or 5 of the patch, go for it. Like, legit, have a good time with it. You don't need to min-max every little thing. If you're going for like Hall of Fame or, you know, a higher mythic like objective or, you know, goal, you're probably going to want to min-max as long as possible. At the same time, there's a boss, like in the raid, the dragon boss, for example, this is like potentially killable by your guild, and you're like a mid to lower tier Hall of Fame guild, somewhere in there. There's a boss that might be killable with more eye level. Guilds might tell you to ship crafts early, possibly, for some people. That's the case, it is what it is. Different guilds and players have different objectives, and that's okay. In the end, have fun with it. Hope this video helped you out. Check out the merch, the start of the video, if you haven't, because it's live right now, with this video going live, and it should be at least. And that's that. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it helped out, and I'll see you again on stream later today. GN.